You forgot.
And we're fucking back. We had Two Addicts and a Moron.
False start.
Episode 33.
No, dude.
34.
All right, you're done saying that. Mike, you're now the episode announcer.
Perfect. 34.
You're done.
34.
You're done.
It's as old as you.
You're done.
It's as old as you.
You're fired. You're done.
I will
You're
never
fired,
give
bro.
that up. I will rewind the clock as much as I need.
You know what I told him today before you get any further?
Yeah.
I said, not this year, but in 4 years from now, we will have a president on this podcast.
Jesus Christ.
One of the next presidents going forward.
Well-
go ahead and fucking mark it down now. We will have one on this podcast.
So you know what that means, folks? That means go to your local AA, your local 12-step meeting. Go to your Oxford House World Convention, and you write them in on the ballot, because I don't know what president's going to be an addict that comes on here.
Well, but they need young people, and fucking we got a lot of people that watch, so they're going on all these different podcasts now.
Well,
shout out to President Bush. I do cocaine and cocaine accessories.
yeah. Listen, I don't think I want a fucking president now or before on here. I don't think that would be.
You know what, boys? Let's not ever talk about politics again.
Yeah, let's do it. All
Let's
right.
just keep it at drug addicts.
Let's keep it rolling here. So, episode 34.
34.
We are back. Two Addicts and a Moron with a very special guest.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Haley, everybody.
Yeah.
Yay.
Let's go.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
I'm glad to be here.
You have a lot of things going on.
I do.
Yeah, you have a 4-month-old child at home.
Yeah, she'll be 4 months old tomorrow.
Oh
Nice.
my gosh.
And a
Hey.
6-year-old and 11-year-old,
Yeah.
but they don't miss me as much.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying thank you.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. My brother has a 3-month-old and can't be left a whole lot. So
Yeah, she's definitely in the Velcro stage. She's
Yeah.
stuck to me most of the time,
Oh, yeah.
but this was important. So
well, thank you so much for we'll get you back to her very shortly.
okay.
All right. Unique story here. We brought her in and she left your kids.
I'll be back.
That's how important we are here at Two Addicts and a Moron. We got people leaving their kids. Yeah. No, we are looking forward to getting into your story. I know it's pretty unique and probably a little bit of the same as some of the people who've sat where you
Yeah,
did.
I'm sure. There's similarities through all of them.
Yeah, for sure. But before we do that, we always introduce ourselves, and then we have a little tradition that we do. I'm sure you've watched, but over here in the middle with the introductions, Joey the Moron.
Yeah. To the left, Jay Klein.
The new episode number teller, Mike Stewboy, Addict Meth GHB.
All right.
Yes.
Just kidding, we'll share it.
And I'm Haley. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I'm grateful to be here.
Awesome. Let's go.
And now on with the tradition that we
Absolutely. And like we do before every episode, let us get present. Let us get centered. Let us bow our heads, close our eyes. Think about the addict that's still out there struggling currently right now. The friends and family members that are struggling with them. And the addict that unfortunately could not be with us here today. And also, let us remember a special individual, Lauren, forever in our hearts, always, and in our minds. Let us take a moment of silence. Thank you.
Okay. And so I know we touched on an individual there. So I want to bring a little bit more light to her because you asked for that
Yeah.
specifically. So go ahead and talk about Miss Lauren.
Okay. Lauren is my older sister. She's 10 years older than me. And she passed August 9th of last year to a fentanyl overdose.
Man.
And she's why I'm here, you know? I usually kind of shy away from stuff like this, but it's not a me thing, it's a we thing.
Right.
And I don't want her loss to be in vain because she tried really hard for a very long time, 40 years. So,
Damn.
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And so fentanyl was her thing?
Eventually, yeah. You know,
Okay.
that used to not be a thing.
Yeah.
But it progresses and eventually, I mean, apparently that was all you could even really get now when you're an opiate addict.
Pretty much.
I've been out of that for a long time, and luckily, thank God, that was not even thought of when I was using, or that I knew of anyways. So, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm so sorry about that.
Thanks.
And so long-term recovery for you.
Yeah.
How long?
January 25th, 2013. So this past January made 11 years.
Okay, thank
Wow.
you for saying that. I'm
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm bad at math and with numbers, so that's awesome. Yeah, super
you.
cool. And what was the DOC?
It depended on the season. It was kind of a little bit of everything, but a long time it was meth, and then at the end it was heroin. Heroin is what almost killed me and made me realize, hey, I can't do this anymore. So yeah, those were the two main. But of course, I kind of just did whatever I was exposed to.
Yeah, change the feeling. Right?
Yeah. Trying to escape my brain.
Yeah. And how did your journey into addiction kind of get going?
Okay. Like I said, my sister is 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
And she was a natural redhead who was very rebellious. And so very early on, I mean, I remember being maybe 4 years old and the cops were knocking at the door trying to figure out where she was. So she was already kind of, going wild. And I remember being maybe 5 or 6, probably 6. My sister would be babysitting me because I had a single mom who had to work, and she would have keg parties. And I remember very clearly trying alcohol for the first time. It was the Seagrams, the little wine coolers.
Yeah.
You know?
Seagram 7.
Oh, it's the little, no, it was the
The
colored
wine coolers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strawberry Hill. That's what we had.
Oh yeah.
So
6 years old.
yeah. And I mean, luckily, AA is a foundation in my recovery, but alcohol was never really my choice. I just don't really like the effect from it.
Same.
I'm the
Thank
same.
goodness, because it's so widely available and accepted. That could have gone much worse. But it's kind of weird because I was definitely not the kid that anyone expected to become an addict. Like, I was extremely smart. In fact, I got like bullied because I was smart, and also fat because I was a fat kid. So I feel like that's probably what kind of started, ostracizing me and making me feel like different or whatever. But I was also very much a rule follower and like goody two shoes, right? So I'll never forget in middle school, the Lovely Dare program. And we had like an essay writing contest for the Dare program, and I won. I had to like read this freaking essay in front of the entire school. Probably because I had like firsthand experience at home.
Yeah.
So I knew more than I should have. And I was in 6th grade, and I remember one of my best friends finding out that he was smoking weed and like crying, right? And like begging him, please don't do that. That's terrible, And within 2 years, I was smoking weed too. And it just kind of, the ball got rolling.
Yeah. Fit you in, I guess, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it took away the anxiety and just kind of helped me escape. I had a lot of terrible shit happening at home. It's in the big book. It says it's a family disease. And sorry, your sponsor was bothering me.
Let's go.
The big
That's
book
fruit
calls
flies,
it
if y'all
a
don't know.
family disease, and that was absolutely the case.
Was that for your mom and dad?
So it was my mom and my stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
They got together when I was maybe 9, and he was in recovery. My mom very much was a recreational user. Like she could do it at a party one weekend and then not touch it again for years, whatever. And my stepdad moved us to East Texas. I'm originally from Dallas Fort Worth area, and he moved us out to East Texas, and within a few years he relapsed, and my mom kind of had the mentality of if you can't beat them, join them. And at 42 tried meth for the first time and became a completely different person, and I was 12. So life got really crazy really fast. And I think that I was just very much trying to escape however I could. So yeah, I started smoking weed at 13, and I met a boy who was not good for me at all. He was the bad boy. So I went from being like this straight A goody two shoes to I'm starting to smoke weed and party on the weekends, and it just got progressively worse.
Why do you think that was? Was it the home component, and you were just like, all right, I'm done being this good person, or was there an attraction to like out of like curiosity?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I think the home component definitely had a lot to do with like me not wanting to feel how I was feeling. I want to be careful because I want to respect the other people in my family. But if anyone's familiar with an ACE score, you know what an ACE score is?
No.
Okay. It's adverse childhood experiences. And look it up. It's really insightful information. But basically, it's this list of different things that happen before you're 18 years old. And the studies that have been done show like all these horrible health conditions and likelihood of like heart disease, cancer, dying young, addiction, all these different things. And it goes up with each score that you have. So like some people may have like an A score of 2 and they have a generally good outcome. Mine's a 10, which is like 10 out of 10. So, you know, like that was, I made 100 on that test too.
Wow.
That's great.
Pass that one.
Accidentally. But, so yeah, I think it was trying to just get out of my head and not feel.
Yeah.
And then, you know, add in this boy. I'm not going to call him a man. I'm going to call him a boy. And I think it was just like the attention and things that I wasn't getting at home. And also probably like I do have a little bit of that rebelliousness in me. So like my parents wanted me to have nothing to do with this boy, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm 14. He's like a 17-year-old dropout who's like thinks he's a gangster. And, you know, whatever. It was not healthy.
Yeah.
So I start hanging out with different people, partying more and more. Still mostly just smoking weed, like, and drinking, but that wasn't really my thing. All my friends wanted to drink, and I would be like, y'all drink, I'm going to go out and smoke. And at 15, the same boy who I cried and begged not to smoke weed, I was like, hey, let's smoke. And he said, okay, I'm going to get my older brother to get us some weed. And it was the night before Halloween, and I was 15. And the brother said, well, they were out of weeds, but I used your money to get something else, and I'll give it back to you in a couple days. And I was like, no, like, that's my money. So I was like, no, you're going to do whatever you got with me. It's my money. And it was meth. And I was 15. And it scared me, honestly. You were talking about, like, laying awake and having to pretend like you're asleep. And I'll never forget literally just laying in the dark. And as shitty as this sounds, like just laying there with this smile on my face that I could not get off my face. And I'm like, this is weird, you know? I'm not supposed to feel like this.
Yeah.
And I definitely, you know, it scared me. So I didn't touch meth again for probably a year and a half. But like I said, I'm in a family of addicts, so it's happening all around me. And eventually it was acceptable to do with me.
Oh man.
Yeah. So by like 16 and a half, I'm using with my family, and it gets really bad. My mom was in a really volatile relationship, and it was kind of back and forth. And eventually I got sent to live with my sister because my mom was, she had to go do a little trip to a hospital. And then then it was like, okay, you really don't have any rules now. Because my sister, you know, I mean, she's 10 years older than me, but not really an authoritarian figure. You know what I mean? So,
It's a sister.
yeah. I mean, and when she tried to act like my mom,
Oh yeah.
you know.
Yeah, you're bucking that for sure.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm living back in Arlington, Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it gets really bad. I'm using almost daily. I'm definitely smoking weed every day, but the meth just kind of progressively got worse. And I already had a lot of I guess I would say culture shock, because I moved from Dallas Fort Worth, then to East Texas, to a town where there's 40 people in my graduating class.
Yeah.
Then back to Arlington, where there's 40, 50 people in every classroom
Yeah.
that I'm in. And so, not to mention, I have all this traumatic, horrible shit happening at home. And my mom's in a mental institution because she literally she had a breaking point from the abuse and the horribly toxic relationship. And so I'm just kind of trying to navigate that as a teenager, you know? And my sister and her husband, they really stepped up and did the best that they could with what they had to try to take me in. But they also had 5 kids between them.
Whoa.
So yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, so it got progressively worse. I'm using more and more. Like I said before, I was the smart kid, and school was very important to me. But by this point, I
Nothing
didn't
was.
care. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to feel how I felt.
Right.
Because the trauma and things that I was experiencing were too much for me to handle. And I definitely didn't really receive mental health help, or because and this isn't just my family. I think that there's a generational thing where it's kind of we just sweep it under the rug and we don't talk about it.
For
What happens
sure.
in
Yeah.
our house stays in our house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shame and shit that happens.
I think especially in this day and age, they talk about it more now.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, you didn't have autism and this and that or mental health. It was just hey, just lace your boots up and pick them up and let's go.
Yeah. Or just
Or
spank
sweep it
their
under the
ass.
rug. Yeah.
And they'll get over it kind of thing. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, there was no therapy and
Yeah.
we've talked about it before in schools. Remember, I was in a school where there was over 1,000 kids and each grade had one counselor, right? And I'm sure that that's something that might have changed now, where you can actually go see a counselor and actually it makes a difference. But back then, that was something you just never did.
Yeah, and I think schools are trying, some schools, but they're trying to incorporate things like social emotional learning.
Yeah.
talking about your feelings and trying to address these things with kids, which I think is super important because otherwise they're just going in blind, like.
You got to get them at an early age.
Yeah.
And I
very
will,
much so.
just to piggyback off what you said, and just to show the generational difference, not that we're that separate, but like.
Kind of are, though. I mean, 10 years.
10
Yeah,
years is a
10
big
years.
difference.
You're right.
Big
Especially like it went from sweeping under the rug, and then my era was the age of medication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our problem solver. Not saying that that's not the solution or the solutions. I mean, sometimes it could go either way, but like now it seems like there's more like
Let's
just
find out
openness.
why you.
What's
feel
the
that
root?
way.
Where is this coming from?
Well, I think there has to be a middle ground, right?
Right.
Because there is, like, medication can be a very useful and necessary tool.
Right.
I have children who have special needs, and I don't even like to say that. My children are neurodivergent, right? Like you said, we didn't have autism back in the day. And especially for girls, it presents differently, right? And so all the studies have actually been done on particularly white boys. And
What does that mean when you say neurodivergent?
so neurodivergency basically it means your brain isn't the same. So autism, ADHD, there's like a whole umbrella of different mental health
I got you.
diagnoses.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically all the research on autism specifically has been done mostly on young white boys and with ADHD too. So when someone who doesn't fit those categories presents it differently, right? Especially in girls, it does show up differently. And my daughter was diagnosed in March of 2020. And before she got her autism diagnosis, she got an ADHD diagnosis. I also have an ADHD diagnosis that I got originally when I was probably 12 years old. My parents finally listened and took me to a doctor. He put me on a medication. It made me a zombie. They said, "Oh, he's a quack. You're not going back.
Yeah.
You don't need it." And then I started self-medicating.
Right.
Yeah.
Because outside of just meth use, I also would take my friend's ADHD medication.
Yeah.
She'd be like, "Here, I'm going to give you this. You do my homework and clean my room. We'll call it even." And I didn't understand at the time. I really just thought, okay, this helps me like calm down and focus. But I didn't understand that this is because I have ADHD and it's helping my brain to function normally.
See, I didn't know that with me either. I had a therapist tell me one time that the reason I enjoyed meth so much is because it actually calmed me down because of my ADHD rather than speed me up like it does most people.
Yeah.
Like it brings me down to a normal surface.
Yeah.
Where most people are like, bah!
And
it doesn't do that to me.
You'd be shocked how many people who use meth are self-medicating. I mean, outside of just trying to escape, their thoughts and feelings and stuff, but actually have ADHD and it's helping because, the argument is, oh, ADHD medicine is basically just meth, which it is not. Molecularly, it's different. That's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
You did it well though.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We got what you're saying.
I felt it.
I felt that.
But there's a reason it is similar because that's the intended effect, to calm down your brain and slow it down. So yeah, I don't really remember where I was.
Sorry.
We were talking about your kids, neurodivergent, kind of getting into the way that emotional feelings and things are being talked about a little bit more openly
Yeah.
these days, as opposed to when I was a kid.
Right.
I was looked at as a black sheep. So that's kind of what it was. I was just goofy and all over the place. But if there was a subject that I liked, I got an A in it.
Yeah.
Like that's what my mom was like, well, do that in math. I'm like, well, math sucks.
Yeah.
Like I don't
That
want
is a part of ADHD actually.
Yeah.
Like if you have the interest, Because even though, like, most people think ADHD and they think, oh, all over the place, can't focus, can't sit still. But there's also this other side of the coin where hyperfocus is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, where you can't take your attention off of something.
Right.
That can definitely be part of it, too. But anyways, all that to say, like, I had to really kind of jump through hoops almost to get my daughter, you know, a diagnosis and help that she needed because girls present differently. And I think for me, like, I have really been focused on trying to make sure that my kids have the supports, like as far as mental health
Sure.
and things like that, because that wasn't something that was afforded to me. Like, I feel like, you know, I'm not saying that if I had, you know, therapy or mental health medication, whatever that looks like, that I wouldn't have become an addict. But I think that things could have gone differently. Like, I could have not felt so different and felt that need to, like, change the way I feel.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is. I went to school for psychology because I think that was one of the things for me. Like, I want to understand.
Yeah.
I want to understand why people think the way they do, or like why mental health has the effect that it does on people.
I think it's the most number one issue that should be talked about every day in America.
Yeah, but we don't want to because
Right.
the shame and stigma and
Well, the thing is, like, mental health is pretty much the reason for everything. The state of our mental health and the way our society is today. I can't say a for sure number, but I'm willing to bet at least 90% of the issues that we face today as a society stem from mental health.
yeah. I mean, I feel like trauma is this buzzword now. Like, everybody's talking about trauma,
Sure.
which I love that people are talking about it, right? Because for so long it wasn't even mentioned. But like the impacts of trauma on our thinking, on our physical health, on literally every part of our lives. Like, could you imagine? I mean, I can't even imagine what this would be like, but someone who genuinely has no trauma, like no childhood trauma, like they just don't experience trauma, what their life would be like. Like, no need to seek attention, validation, no need to overeat or drink or do drugs or all these different things that people turn to as a way to try to cope with or
You think that's
numb.
possible?
I don't. I really
That's what
don't
I'm
think it's
saying.
possible,
Like,
especially in our society.
Yeah, I think life happens, right? Even at an early age.
Well, and the beautiful thing about people is that there is this other factor of like resilience, right?
Yeah.
Like, as much as I have been through, I like to think that for some reason I've been able to make it through that, right? Like, there's things that I don't even talk about, but I've made it through them because there is some part of me that is resilient and that tries to like grow through what I go through, right? Instead of just saying, okay, this is, you know, the end of the world, which, you know, I've been there like
Yeah.
many times.
Oh, yeah.
But like, even when I thought the world was ending, I still woke up the next day and had to keep going.
Yeah.
And if anything, like in my recovery, that's kind of been a theme. I've been through so many different experiences just in my sobriety that it's like I feel like I've lived 9 lives in the last 11 years. Not even including all the shit that led me up to that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that resiliency factor is super important. And I think maybe that should be the conversation, is like trying to give these kids and people tools on how to be resilient, how to take their trauma and take these lived experiences and turn them into growth and positive, a purpose, to find
Right.
some purpose out of what they've gone through. Because I mean, that's kind of what we're all learning how to do as addicts, right? And like the reason for this podcast.
Come on.
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think that's what makes the program work so well,
Yeah.
is because, when we get in there, we have all these character defects, right? And we don't get rid of all of them, but we're able to cope with them and deal with them and figure and identify them. And one thing that I used to always do, and I never realized it, was I will sit in self-pity for a minute. And if I don't get myself out of it, I would, like my friend Miss Karen, she always says that when she's in self-pity, she says out loud, she says, self-pity party for one check, please.
Yeah.
So she can get the fuck out of it, right?
Yeah.
And
That's funny.
that's something that they teach us in the program how to deal with, among so many other things. But yeah, what you said makes a lot of sense, where as kids, maybe not really as people, we're like, oh, well, feel bad for me. And it's like, oh, I can't believe that happened to you. I'm so sorry for that. Rather than saying, hey, that sucks.
Yeah.
But this is a way that you can learn from it, and you can grow from it, and you can move past it.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, everybody picks up baggage along the way, and it starts from probably the minute you go to school or preschool, right? Like you get bullied, and I say it all the time, but like, I think a little bit of the issue from what I hear is that people like to judge people's trauma. And to me, trauma is, I feel like the feeling is equal across the board. No matter what happened to you, no matter what level of horrible thing happened to you to give you that feeling, at the end of it, person up here that had something really wildly horrible happen to him, and somebody down here that may have been on a much more mild case from outside looking in, they feel the same. If those two
Right.
people got into a room and talked about just the way they felt and left the happening of it on the sideline, it would probably be just they would probably find a lot of similarities in
Well,
that.
even if they did like brain scans, like,
Yeah.
I mean, it would show pretty much the same thing. And that was something that was kind of really hard for me to accept, right? So, in 2015, I lost my dad, and it was really sudden and unexpected. He passed from Takotsubo cardiomyopathy,
Holy,
which is broken heart syndrome. I thought that the doctor was kind of like bullshitting. I was like, broken heart syndrome, like that's not a thing. But through that, I started therapy, and was diagnosed with PTSD. And when the doctor told me that, I was like, no, like that's for veterans, you
Yeah.
know, that's for people who, no, you know, in fact, like the more we talked, and like, I guess because I was so used to these things, right? Like that was what my life experience had been, that you think it's normal. Like when you grow up in dysfunction and chaos, that is the normal to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like it just becomes what it is.
yeah,
And so getting that diagnosis definitely kind of got the ball rolling on me really wanting to understand like mental health and figure out how to live with that, right?
Yeah.
Because like it's no joke, you
Yeah.
know? And there's a reason that people who have PTSD a lot of times do use, because that is like the ruminating of memories and things like that is a lot, you know? But I don't know, I just went blank. So
no,
yeah.
you're doing great. And
Thanks.
so was there a moment for you where you were like, I've got a problem? Like for you personally, I mean, maybe people outside looking in maybe saw it, but for you, when do you think that kind of came about?
So there were a few little instances where I was like, I knew that there was a problem. And it was kind of like this snowball effect. So when I was 17, my cousin, who was like one of my best friends, passed from an overdose. And I experienced some really terrible, whatever. I was date raped, and I kind of had like a mental breakdown because I could not process all of that. It was just like too much at once. And I kind of just decided, okay, I'm not going to use anymore. And I went completely cold turkey, no meth, no weed, no nothing. But I was like severely depressed. I'm talking about like laid in bed all day long, could not function.
And how old were you?
17. Dropped out of school. I was already going to like an alternative school. Not that I was sent to one because I didn't get in trouble. That's one thing. Like I didn't ever get in trouble in school or anything like that. I waited till I got out of school to get in trouble. I was going to the alternative school that's basically pregnant girls and drug addicts. And I fit right in except for I wasn't pregnant.
Yeah.
Dropped out of school. I want to say it was about 7 or 8 months that I literally just could not even get out of bed. And like my sister would come in and be like, here's some drugs, please get up. You know, like I know that sounds shitty, but it was like, what can we do to get you out of, because it's scary to even think about, especially at 17, you know, like, so I decided that I was going to go to college. I had dropped out and got my GED. And during this 7 months, like we had a neighbor that really cared about us and convinced me and my mom that we should both go back to school. Okay. The night before starting my very first day of community college, my mom said, hey, I'm going to go down the street right quick. I'll be back. I was like, you're not going anywhere without me.
Yeah.
So I went with her. And that was at about 8 p.m. Next thing I know, it's like 6 a.m. We're sitting in this guy's house, you know, wide awake.
Yeah.
And going to our first day of college, I'm like chewing gum, like
Yeah.
chewing. I'm chewing that gum.
Yeah.
So needless to say, my first attempt at college did not go well.
Yeah.
I think we made it maybe 6 weeks. And I decided to try to go to treatment. I went, but I told them that I just smoked weed. I was like, I'm here because I'm depressed and I can't stop smoking weed. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't tell them the full story. And I was only there for a few days. And it's kind of a blur because I remember they put me on Ativan, I think, and basically knocked me out. Like I was just very much out of it. And I think I was there 4 or 5 days max. And I left because I was like, I don't need this. I'm going to go. Things progressed more and more because that's, you know, what happens. We get evicted from where we're living. We moved to a trailer and not the like super nice kind,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It was a trap house trailer is what it was.
Trap trailer. Let's
Yeah,
go.
man.
Yeah.
Yellow trailer.
Oh, dude. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, shit just kept getting more and more chaotic. I will say, like, there was some part of my mind, and I feel like I heard somebody else share this on the podcast, but I had these, like, I had these morals, right? In my addiction. I was like, I'll never touch this. I'll never do this. These are my limits, right? And each time that I would think, okay, maybe I'm going to get clean, and then I don't, then it's like, oh, that's the first thing I'm doing.
Yeah. Moving the goalpost.
Yeah. So up until this point, it's just meth, weed was a constant, and I had a phase with ecstasy too. And I think that was around the time that I went into that severe depression because, like I depleted all the serotonin out of
Yeah.
my brain completely. And then it
Yep.
was just like, I can't function.
Yeah.
So this kind of ties into the embarrassing part.
Okay.
Oh, you got an embarrassing story?
Yeah. So,
Dude, we watched the podcast.
yeah, I
Yo,
have, of
we
course. I
appreciate
did my
you.
homework,
The most
Yeah.
embarrassing thing.
So, in my addiction, when people are on meth, there's like this paranoia that happens, right? But that never really happened for me. I was not the like peeping out the blinds, looking
Right.
through. That was just not my
Yeah.
thing.
Same.
But there was this point where like weird Wi-Fi things would come up, and then there's this like van parked across the street, and I'm like, this is weird. Like I'm not paranoid. I'm not a paranoid person.
Especially when someone puts their Wi-Fi name as White Van, or I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
But I've seen,
I've seen like FBI.
Yeah.
It's something like
Undercover.
surveillance. Like
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was actually the last time I remember drinking too. This was actually like a while before I actually got sober, but like I said, alcohol really wasn't my drug of choice. And this guy had come over to our trap house trailer and came with a bottle of coconut Ciroc. And I'm like 17 and I'm like, hell yeah, let's drink.
Yeah.
So I drink a bunch and he's like, can you get some weed? And I'm like, sure. And he's like, okay, but this money I have is not real. Oh,
Okay.
okay. Well, I'm totally drunk,
Yeah.
right? Like 17 and shit-faced drunk.
Yeah.
So, go to buy some weed and we stop at a gas station. And like, I'm 17. So I am kind of clueless, really. And he's like, here, go in and buy a cigarello and pay for the gas. So I go in the gas station, pay for it. We go get weed. Shout out to the person that I got weed from that was like living in Section 8 housing and called the feds for me buying weed with 50 fake dollars.
No way.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's embarrassing.
That's
That's
So,
ballsy.
like,
Wow.
did you really call them and tell them that you sold drugs?
yeah.
That's wild.
That's
I mean, I guess $50, I'd be pissed if somebody screwed me over for $50. But anyways, so the van and the Wi-Fi in the van, that was a whole thing.
Oh, that's a real thing.
It was a real thing.
Oh, it's
I
real.
wasn't actually paranoid.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Oh, so there was a real.
There was a real thing. So, like I said, I'm a clueless 17-year-old. Fast forward a little bit. I go to jail for a week for traffic tickets. And my dad comes and picks me up from jail. I go to his house because my mom was like, no, you're not coming home. Whatever. That's neither here nor there. I'm in my dad's house. It's a long story, but basically things got physically violent between us. I defended myself and like he knew that, but because of my addiction and stuff, he told the police, hey, she's addicted to meth. And the cop was like, oh, my ex-wife was a meth addict. I hate meth addicts. I'm going to take her to jail.
all right. Proving a point.
And, I had literally just gotten out of jail for a week. So I am clean a week, but still, like, I'm not in some meth psychosis. Anybody who gets hit with a phone cord is going to kind of like fight back. And
yeah.
it just got really out of hand. Anyways, so I go to jail and I wake up to two guys who look like men in black. Like, I mean, button-up shirts, Rolex, like super. I was like, is this for real?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, basically, you went to a gas station and you paid for cigarellos and gas, and we saw this guy hand you the money, and we know you're 17 and like you don't want to spend 10 years in the federal prison system for every bill you pass, 2 bills in the gas station. And we have him on camera handing you the money. So either you point him out of these 3 people or you're going to federal prison. Side note, that guy robbed my mom shortly after all that shit happened with the money. So whatever. Yeah, snitches get stitches, but I'm not going to federal prison
Yeah.
over you. I mean, you would think like
That's a wise choice.
you would think that it's cool to buy the weed with 50 fake dollars, but you sent me into a gas station, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what? Anyways, so that was embarrassing. And that was August of 2012 that I went to jail for a family violence charge. And it was crazy because my dad was like, I don't want to press charges. Like, tried to go to the judge, drop it and everything. Because it was both of us, and I was literally defending myself. But whatever. The state picked it up because this is Texas, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's been fun. It's just a misdemeanor, but still, like, it doesn't matter in Texas. That's basic. It's the closest thing you can have to a felony.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one likes that charge.
Yeah, no. And that was 12 years ago.
And the thing is, unfortunate thing is, like, not to excuse any, but they don't know the full story, you know?
No, and what's crazy, though, is my dad literally tried to go to the judge and be like, hey, this is what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Because his guilty conscience, you know, like, how are you going to instigate and be physically violent? And, like, I was the one trying to call the cops because
Yeah.
whatever. Rest in peace, Dad.
Man.
Listen. Dysfunction. But yeah, so I go to jail, and basically there was this weird, like, in and out thing where I got, like, bonded out, and then I lived in Arlington, which is Tarrant County, but I went to jail in Dallas County. Do not recommend Lou Sterrett. It is not a good jail. It is a terrible place. Got bonded out, but because I was living in a different county, that's a violation of probation. Just all these different things, right? So I think I went like 3 different times. And in between those times, like November of 2012, I checked myself into rehab because in my head, I was like, okay, this will look good for court. And also I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know, like life is fucking chaotic. So I check into a treatment center. I checked into the Right Step in Euless. And I think I was there for maybe 4 days. And my mom called me, or I called her, and she said, our dog is missing. And I know this sounds really dumb, right? But this was my baby before I had babies. It was a puppy. It was a Boston Terrier boxer mix. And he was the most precious. His name was Cowboy. Anyways, I was like, oh, hell no. I've got to go home and find my dog. He's like, no, stay there. Don't come home. No, I called someone to come get me, signed myself out, and left. And my dog wasn't just missing. One of our neighbors ran him over and tried to, like, bury him without even telling us.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I was super devastated, and we had a live-in drug dealer at the time. Yeah, that's, you know,
Jeez.
I mean, he got free rent. We got,
Drugs.
you know,
It worked out.
it worked out.
Yeah.
And like, I'm in the bathroom, like crying, just hysterically over my dog. And he's like, I need to come in there and prepare something for someone. And I'm like, can I have some? And I didn't even turn around and look. He hands me a plate and it's heroin. And like, I had never done that. But like, it was just that right moment where I was just so distraught and
Needed something.
I needed something. I needed to change the way I felt. And that was it, man. I had tried opiates, just like pain pills, early on in using, but like that was a whole different beast, you know? And very, like, I was like addicted the second I touched it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like meth where I was like, oh, let me not touch this again. It's too good. No, it was like, I mean, very,
I want more.
immediately. And I didn't care, you know? So I turned my life upside down.
Did you smoke it, snort it? What did you do? Shoot it?
I snorted it the first time, but within like, I don't know, 2 weeks, I was using IV.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because like I had only ever even done meth like that probably June, and here we are in November. So June to November of 2012, like I had never even touched a needle any time before that. But that is definitely when it was like, here, we're really just going to dive into the deep end and fuck your life up real quick. Sorry, I'm sure I'm not the first person to cuss on this podcast.
No.
Okay?
No. Yeah. We cuss here. We cuss here at Two Addicts and a Moron.
Speak freely.
Fuck.
Yeah, so then I met another guy, and he was a seasoned heroin user, you know?
Men ruin everything, man.
Especially heroin addict men.
Yeah.
Man.
Man, he was a good guy, though.
Yeah.
Really, he really was. But, you know, we were both, like,
Broken.
super broken.
Yeah.
And I mean young, too. Like, I'm 18 years old, you
Yeah.
know? I think he was maybe 2 years older than me, something like that.
Yeah.
What year were you born?
I was born in 91.
Okay, I'm 93.
Let's go.
Yeah. So he was probably born about 91. And you know, shit got real fast. Like we go from the trap house trailer, then we're evicted from there, then we're like living in a motel. I didn't know you could get evicted from a motel, but me and my sister got in a physical fight, and that went left real quick, and it was just one thing after another. So that guy that I was with, basically, he gave me way too much, and I don't know, it was really weird. He gave me way too much, and then I got in the car with these people, and he was like, "You're gonna go to their house, you're gonna be good." And I was not good. I woke up and had no idea where the fuck I was. Like, it was very awful. And then I got picked up. My mom and I were both picked up and taken to a family friend's house that we had known since I was like 6 years old. And they're not quite normies, but they're also like not addicts, if that makes sense. Like, they have their own quirks, but they have always kept their shit together.
Right.
And so they let me and my mom stay in her daughter's bedroom, and I got super violently ill because that was the first time from the time that I started using heroin until then. And this is like early December. So like
about a month into it.
Like, I mean, it was like really bad though, and I was using a lot already. And so this was the first time that I experienced like withdrawal. And so I'm super, super sick. I'm like praying, you know, those like get out of jail prayers or, you know, like save me prayers.
Yeah.
Foxhole prayers.
Yeah. Foxhole prayers. That's the word. I said a really crazy prayer, right? And I told God that I would never touch heroin again. Like, please just let me live through this, right? Don't let me die on this bathroom floor because I'm sick as fuck. Please don't let me die. And also, if you could give me a baby, I'll never touch heroin again. Because at just freshly 19, sick on the bathroom floor from heroin, I really need a baby, right?
Yeah.
So my mom calls her parents and my dad, and basically she goes to go to treatment and tells my dad, "Hey, your daughter's strung out on heroin. You got to do something with her." And he comes and picks me up, and I don't last a week at his house before I have somebody come get me, and spent another month and a half using, but not heroin. Like, I kept that promise when I told God, like, I'm not going to touch heroin again, but the lifestyle and the people that I was around, I didn't really feel like it was an option, honestly, to not use. This was January of 2013. The very beginning, I'm living in a trap house apartment. I meet a guy, of course, this is how the story goes. And I kind of think that it was like I needed protection in a way because, like, the people that I was around were scary.
Yeah.
Scary as hell. And I was a baby, really. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely followed my sister into some really sketchy ass situations. And so I'm dating this guy for like 3 weeks, maybe. And my friend calls me and says, hey, let's go get some weed. I'm like, whatever, okay. And she comes and picks me up. And she pulls up to 7-Eleven and she's like, hey, I want to go get a drink. Come in with me. And I'm like, okay, your boyfriend just went in. Why are we both going in too? We get out of the car. She's like, I love you. I'm sorry. I was like, what do you mean? And a bail bondsman is like, Haley Masters, you're under arrest.
Oh, shit.
Fuck.
Oh, okay, cool. So this bail bondsman takes me to his office and sits down and talks to me. Like, at this point, I'm like clearly like sunk in, I look hungry. I look sick.
Yeah.
I guess he probably felt bad for me. He took me to McDonald's and got me a Big Mac and some fries. We went to Dallas County Jail and they said my court date had been pushed back a month. So they weren't going to take me in. And he said, where can you go? And I was like, well, you can't take me to my dad's house. I guess take me to rehab. So he drives me to the Right Step in Euless, the same one that I had gone to for 3 days before. And I get there and they're like, oh, okay, you left stuff here before. And I was like, I did? They were like, yeah. And they go in the back and they give me this little pouch. It was like a pencil zipper pouch.
Yeah.
And it had half a pack of cigarettes, $25. And then along with it was a Bible that my grandparents gave me when I got baptized when I was 11. I was like, y'all kept this? Like, mind you, like, I'm starving. I'm sick. I have no cigarettes. I don't have any, like,
Nothing.
I'm wearing flip-flops and it's January. It's freaking cold.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't really expecting for that to be the trajectory of things. So I check into rehab. That's January 25th, 2013. And February 14th, 2013, I find out I'm pregnant. So apparently I got pregnant probably the night before going to treatment. My daughter just turned 11 in October. So yeah, that was shocking. I was not prepared for that by any means. And to bounce around just a little, 3 days after going into treatment, my sister and probably, 4 of the people that we were around were arrested for some really basically organized crime. And like, these were not people that I knew. Like, I was introduced, but I was like, hey, I'm scared,
Yeah.
there was still this part of me that was like, I'm not ready for this life.
Still a kid.
Like, yeah, I had just turned 19. Like, and so my sister was arrested. Her charge was armed robbery. So,
So do you think if you wouldn't have got turned in that you would have been there with them?
oh, absolutely.
100%.
I mean,
So it was a blessing that your friend turned you in.
yeah. And I definitely didn't see it like that at first.
Sure.
You know?
You were like, fuck her.
It's like, really? Like, because she was doing all the same shit,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like, but I guess she did sign my bond, so
She might
Fair
have got
enough.
paid a little cash for it, too.
who knows?
Yeah. So that probably saved your life. That plus you
That
finding
and-
out that you got pregnant. Because
Yeah.
now you can't use.
Right.
Or,
No.
well, you could, but
Yeah, I guess that is an option. It wasn't for me, though.
plus God, you made a promise to God.
I
to have a
did.
baby.
I did, man. And here's the thing. When you make a promise to God,
Yeah.
You better be careful because he comes through. He
Yeah.
does. Sometimes when you least expect it, like when you're in a rehab center at 19, you know?
Well, there was a little bit of truth to, you
I mean,
might
I
have
kept
needed a
my
baby.
Absolutely.
You know?
Her name is Ava Grace because that is my grace. She saved my life because there's no way. I mean, there's no telling that if I wouldn't have got those 2 little pink lines that I would have been right back out,
Yeah.
you know?
I feel the same way about my daughter. That was my reason. I know they say, like, you got to do this for you, and everybody's different. But if I didn't have her as my why to do it, I don't know where I would be today.
I mean,
Now, I do
same.
it for me now and for other people, but to get my ass in gear, it took her.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, especially with the things that I experienced and like just the cycles of dysfunction and abuse, and I mean, I just barely touched on the things, right? But like there was a lot of really hard things that I experienced in childhood, and I don't ever want my kids to experience any of that, you know?
Yeah.
And like ultimately I know that there's going to be some trauma, right? Like
Sure.
I mean, my oldest who's been with me through everything, right? Even in sobriety, I waited 4 years into sobriety. Like I stayed completely single. I was like, I'm gonna surpass that 1 year. Like I'm gonna focus on my kid. And I started college when she was 6 months old to get my associate's degree in psychology. And then I got in a relationship with someone who I thought was a normie, and that went really, really bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes we repeat things, like the things that we see in our childhood, sometimes we repeat.
Well, it's all that we really know,
Yeah.
you know?
And so I think I was kind of blind to a lot of the red flags. And it ended up really abusive. And like I had to get a protective order and move across town and all kind of shit that, at 4 years sober, you don't really expect.
Right.
Like my life wasn't that chaos and crazy shit anymore. And my kid, that was the thing though, the only time, that was what got me out of it, is that it had never happened in front of her. And then the one time that it did, I was like, okay, that's it. I called,
Gone.
because I will not repeat those cycles with my girls. Like, I think that there's a reason that God gave me 3 daughters. As crazy as the teenage years are going to be, like they will always know that they have a safe and stable place to come home to, and someone that they can come to with their problems, because that's another thing that I really try to foster is like communication, right? Like I want them to be able to come to me and be like, hey mom, I was at a party this weekend and there was drinking and I tried it or whatever. Like I don't want to be their best friend, because I know that there is like a line, right?
Happy medium, yeah.
Yeah. I still want to be a parent, but I want them to have enough comfortability and trust between us that they can talk to me about anything. So yeah, I think that all 3 of my girls have been my why, and of course now also my sister, because I watched her for so long. I mean, she fought, like she really did. And it was crazy because she got sober. She was clean for 35 days, which with opiates, that's,
It's a long fucking
It's a
time.
good
You
time.
know, I
Good
mean-
amount of time.
For the average person that doesn't know about this addiction, that doesn't seem like a long time.
yeah.
It's a fucking eternity.
I don't know. It was really weird. I told my mom today, like, in people who are dying, like in hospice and things like that, a lot of times before they pass, there's this weird thing that happens where they get this like surge of energy and they are all of a sudden like this lively, like nothing's wrong. And as crazy as it sounds, like that 30 days with her, that's what it felt like. It was like we spent time together. Like we went to the water park with my kids and meditated, and we went to meetings, and we did all these things that for a long time we stopped. I had to separate myself
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure.
because there were multiple times where like she would bring drugs, and I don't want my kids around that. It's just not something that I'm willing to compromise on. But something was different this time. There really was. And we really had a lot of healing that happened between us. I don't know. It's crazy. I've definitely been in kind of like a really, I'm not in the dark place around it anymore like I was
When did she pass?
August 9th last year, 2023.
2023. Okay.
Yeah.
So a
we
little
just
over a
passed.
year.
Yeah.
And you didn't use because of it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I think that's so important for people to hear, because one of my sponsors one time asked me, like, would you ever relapse? I think I said this before. Maybe I said it in a meeting, and I said, no, I'll never relapse. And he said, well, what if something happened to your daughter? And I was like, well, fuck yeah, I would. And he said, well, that's the problem. He said, you're already justifying a relapse. He said, you got to be able to go through anything without relapsing and not make an excuse for your relapse. So I think that's important to hear, that you went through your dad
Yeah. And
your sister.
speaking of, so when my dad passed, I was 21 at the time, I think. And that was really hard. I had to sign a DNR, which, like, who even knows what that is at 21?
Yeah.
And I think in my sobriety, like I'm one of the lucky people that I worked the steps in my first year, and like I did whatever it took. I read my fifth step in a McDonald's, like I was willing, whatever. And so that obsession was taken away, and I really didn't have a desire to use or drink at all. But when my dad died, that was the first time I had that, like, that thought. And my dad was living in Lancaster, which is right, like, South Dallas area. And right after he passed, that guy, that lovely seasoned heroin user from earlier in the story that I had dated a while ago, he was living in Oak Cliff, which is right by where I was. And he reached out and it was like, I'm so sorry about your dad. And for a split second, I thought, like, this would be this is justified. Everybody, like, it's okay, And for just that split second, I thought about saying, hey, come get me. Yeah. And something in my gut was like, no, you can't. And, like, clearly I couldn't. I have my daughter, like, I know better, right? And 2 weeks later, he passed from an overdose.
Wow.
And I can't tell you how many times throughout my story, right? Like, even before sobriety, that situations like that have happened where I must have had some divine protection that I can't see. You know what I'm saying? And, like, call it God, the universe, whatever you want to. For me, it's God. And, man, there's, like, undeniable proof again and again in my life that he's looked out for me when I could not do so for myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really think that you can go through death and go through things that you can't even imagine, because I have,
Yeah.
Yep.
You're living proof of it. Yeah, I mean, I know you've only really scratched the surface a little bit with some of these things, but I mean, you're painting a very, very detailed picture for everyone. And I can tell you that, you went through all those things so you could sit here and tell the story.
Yeah.
And get it out there to people, because it's going to help. It's going to help at least one person.
I hope so. I mean, if it helps only one person, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's probably going to be more than that.
Yeah.
But at least one, you know.
Well,
I can.
Good.
Go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
I was going to say your story in itself. I mean, you got 3 girls that you're going to raise, totally different from what you grew up in.
Yeah.
And you get to guide them the way that you probably weren't guided. And then you get to, not that we can protect them at all times, but you'll protect them from everything that you can.
Yeah.
And they'll be well informed.
Yeah.
You know, there will be communication there that probably wasn't for you.
Right.
And it's like you said it numerous times, like, I was just a kid. At least your girls would be well informed of what's out there.
Yeah.
And what to expect and what to beware of.
I think that's the thing too for me is sometimes it's weird because I did live so much insanity at such a young age that like I'm 30. I just turned 30 in December, but I feel old already. You know what I mean? Like, like
Well, 3 kids will do that to you,
well,
number one.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was just a kid and I definitely, you know, I can take accountability. Of course, I made lots of choices and things, but there were things that were beyond my control as well. That is my purpose now, is to make sure that my kids and other kids, like it's not just my kids. Like if I see someone else that their kids are experiencing things like that, like I do feel like an obligation to say, hey, here's resources, here's this, whatever that
100%.
looks like, because as kids, we're not capable of the rational, logical thinking that adults are. Like, apparently our brains don't even fully develop until we're 25.
Shit, I'm 44. My shit is not even anywhere near. I probably have the emotional capacity of what your 4-month-old has.
Okay,
to
I
be
just
honest with
mean
you.
the part of our brain where we can make logical decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's still working on that too.
No,
He's
it's
still years behind.
that does get different as you're older, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think to your point, your kids are gonna know that they have a resource
Yeah.
in you, right? And that's the most important resource that they can have. And riding that line, like you said, you know, not being their friend. I told my son and my daughter all the time, I'm like you're gonna have a million fucking friends in your life. You only got one set of parents.
Yeah.
And it's not my fucking job to be your bro. And it's hard. It's hard because my son's 15. I act exactly like him. And it's just like, I want to bro up with him so bad sometimes. Just be like, this is a great idea. And I'm like, this is a terrible idea. You shouldn't be doing this shit with him.
That's so funny, dude. That's so.
But I really think that, but I think that your kids have got an incredible resource. And for what it's worth, you know, I'm listening to your story. I really am. I'm after everything. I'm grateful that you had that 35 days with your sister. You know, I know it didn't end the best. It ended the worst. But you just said that was as good of a time that you had. And like you said, 35 days is an eternity of sobriety. Well, and that sounds like a short period of time, but that might have been as long of a time as you ever had with her. That was in that
For quite a few years.
Yeah.
I think since probably 2017, she had a good maybe 6 months.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, at that point, she was also like super involved. I mean, we ran a women's meeting together and
Oh, cool.
we were going and sharing both of our stories and, you know, like very active and involved. Maybe a little bit of that pink cloud going on, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but you know, a guy happened and,
Yeah.
you know,
Look, man.
that's, you know, that's definitely part of both of our stories. And, I don't know, today I've had to do a lot of work around that. Today I'm in the most healthy relationship I've ever even seen in my life, which is crazy. 5.5 years, and like there's no red flags. Like I've searched for them.
Yeah.
I've really tried. Probably almost created some just out of
For sure.
Yeah.
Because when toxicity and chaos and all that shit is all that it takes some work to get used to like healthy
Right.
communicating and not being like super codependent. It's been a learning curve, but I think that is one of the most important things, whether it's like relationships, like romantic relationships with our kids, with our friends, whatever that looks like. For me, those have been like the greatest lessons, right? Because I think people are mirrors. And the experiences we have with people show us a lot about ourselves if we're willing to look at it.
Yeah.
And it can really teach you a lot if you're willing. If you're not, then you just keep repeating the same patterns and you don't grow. But
Yeah.
Well, to that point, it's the program too, right? Like it's a great program, and it's worked wonders for these two guys and you and so many other people. But it all started with you embracing it, because it's been there forever. It was there for you guys the whole time. You just weren't ready to wrap it up with both arms and embrace it. But once you did, then it worked, right? Like, so.
yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. Well,
There's a step before that though, but
Yeah.
yeah.
it's called surrender.
Well, yeah.
That part.
It's like,
That
fuck it, I
gift of
give up.
desperation.
Well,
Yeah,
embrace, surrender. I mean, like
Yeah.
you can call it whatever you want, but it all has
You're
to.
right,
Yeah.
the humbling, Like,
Yeah.
I had to fully immerse myself because I'm not a half in, half out. Because if I'm 1 foot in the dope world, 1 foot in the recovery world, I'm going to the dope world.
Yeah.
So I like to stay all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to, your sister, Lauren, if it's okay with you, if you have a picture of her, we can put it on the credits of this podcast
Yeah, I'd love that.
And
put, her born date, where she was from, just so she's never forgotten.
I'd really love that.
and at minimum, when you sign the wall, I want you to put her down too.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I think that'd be dope. Well, we're gonna end this on me learning a little bit of what it was like to be on meth one time. All right, you heard a little bit of the story, but I took too much pre-workout.
My pre-workout.
Mike's pre-workout. I am a fat, slovenly guy who doesn't really need pre-workout for anything.
No, you don't.
And Mike is a well-built, jacked dude who needs pre-workout for the 9 fucking workouts that he does in a day. And he wasn't at work one day, and I forgot my energy drink. And I decided to go over to his desk, and I grabbed his pre-workout. I asked another like 6'7". He's at least 8 feet tall.
He's a
and like
behemoth.
320 pounds of pure muscle. I was like, hey man, how much of this does Mike take? And he said 4 scoops. He was kidding. I didn't take that advice. I was like, oh, he's being serious. So I put 4 scoops. That's 1,200 milligrams straight to my dome.
That's
of
1,600.
pre-workout. Whatever again, bad with numbers. So the point of this was it was an awful experience. I felt terrible. I wanted to rip the skin off of my face.
Oh my God.
And it was really fucking bad. I thought I was going to have to go home from work. And I wanted to tell that story because now I know what it's like to do meth.
Itchy.
I'm just
Sweaty.
kidding. No, I don't. I don't know what it's like to do meth because that left my body pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then I was good. But I wanted to share that story.
Did you
'cause
sleep that night?
I did, but probably not well.
Right.
And it was the crash was hard.
Oh, I'm sure.
So like, you know,
I'm sure.
you know, going to bed probably wasn't as big of an issue as one would think.
Right.
But it was. I didn't half step it. I'll just say that.
I just know sometimes when I take caffeine, like large amounts before I go to sleep, or at least in that window, I can be super tired. I can't wait to get in that bed. And then as soon as I hit that bed, I am wide awake.
Fucking wide open.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's me. That's my body chemistry. You probably go to sleep.
Yeah, dude. It drives my girl up the fucking wall. Like how quickly I go to bed.
Oh, dude, I bet you are. You're one of those guys that can fall asleep anywhere, huh?
No, not anywhere. But like when I put my head on that pillow, it's like 5 seconds and I'm gone. And I could feel her looking at me like, you motherfucker. Like I'm gonna be up here scrolling on TikTok and you're just over there sleeping. Maybe you can answer this a little bit better. You have a partner. Is there something about a man's serenity and happiness that is the loudest fucking white noise that drives you crazy?
No. No. My partner snores, so there's no quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I'm the head hit the pillow and I'm out
Okay.
person, so luckily I can sleep pretty well through the freight train.
Yeah.
Apparently,
And,
you know?
Mother of 3 girls, 1 infant. I bet you're like sleeping whenever and wherever the hell you can get it.
Yeah, well, we're just now out of the woods. She's starting to sleep better, so
Yeah.
my sanity is slowly coming back. You know, if y'all would have asked me on like a month ago, I would have come in here like a zombie. Like, yeah. So, sleep is a precious thing.
Yeah.
It is.
It's at a premium. Well, I was saying that to be mean to my girl because I make that joke with her all the time. I'm like, what is it about my peace and happiness that you hate? What is it?
You got to be up with me.
Yeah, like
You can't go sleep till I go to sleep.
No, you're just looking at him over there all content. I need to go fuck it up right now. Like,
I go to sleep pretty quick too. I always get Destiny rubs my head until I fall asleep.
yeah.
And then I have to hear, well, you never rub me. And I'm like, yeah, but that's because you don't go to sleep as quick as I do.
We'll be here all night.
We'll be here all fucking night. My hands will get tired.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you for coming.
thank you.
You're welcome.
This was
Sorry, I
great.
was-
That's,
Sponsors.
that's Bill.
That's Bill?
Yeah, we have Bill. I snorted Tom the other day on the podcast.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought you were the normie.
I didn't mean to.
He just likes insects.
I was just right here, and one just flew up my nose in the middle of a poignant story from our guest, and I just started doing this, like feel it in the back of my throat, the old drip and stuff. It was, and I had to hold it together, and I did.
Yeah, you did.
Nobody
really well.
knew about it until the following week.
I would have freaked out.
Yeah, well, you know,
for you.
we're doing God's work in here, and not a gnat is going to
Stop us.
prevent that from happening going up my nostril. No, ma'am.
Like I said, we like to also keep a little bit of the old trap trailer ingredient
Yeah.
element, you know?
Yeah,
know?
brick walls,
Yeah, I feel
graffiti,
right.
fruit flies.
If you listen closely, you might hear a stray dog in the background. That's Mike's dog outside.
he had his cat in here on the set. Well, it was getting a little wild.
Yeah.
But Haley, thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
And
Thank y'all for having me.
I know you started out very, very nervous. And
Yeah, very much so. And I probably rambled and, you
No,
know,
you actually
no, you
did awesome.
it was great.
I could have focused a little more on like the other side, you know, like the recovery part, but it takes what it takes. And
Yeah. It's going to resonate. And but they can always, where can they find you to reach out to you?
Facebook, I have TikTok and Instagram and all those things, but I'm not an influencer or anything.
That doesn't
Facebook,
matter.
Haley Elizabeth Masters. It's HALEY. And y'all can tag me in the post or whatever. So they can
Most definitely.
Yeah. We'll make sure that people hit you up and use you as a resource now.
For sure.
You're out there for the masses. And sober water. Drink sober water. Proud sponsor of Two Addicts and a Moron now. We are growing up here. What'd you think about the water, Haley?
It's great.
Yeah.
I also love the little bottle.
Yeah.
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 Very nice.
I brought one into work, and they were like, "Is that a Coors Light?"
Yeah.
I'm like,
What the fuck would I drink a Coors Light for?
"Well, I used to drink Natty Light.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Dude.
Hey,
It's
give
the
me
cheapest
a
one.
Hey, give me a Bud Ice.
That's a man
Give me
beer right there.
give me a 211.
That'll get you
Out
real
in
fucked
Texas,
up.
we do Natties.
That's
Yeah,
gross.
Natural Light.
that checks out.
That's fucking gross.
That's a type of drink. You know,
Well,
that's a country drink.
everybody find sober water, drink it. It's delicious.
Yes, it's on Amazon.
And on Amazon, but go to your local convenience store. Get it here.
Tell them you want
Yell
it in your store.
Yeah.
Go to your neighborhood convenience store, your bodegas.
Bodegas. What the fuck are we?
For our New York listeners,
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're another.
go to your friggin' Michoacanas, right? Or
Why'd you point at him?
don't do me like that, bro. Me tienditas. All right, cut it.
All right.
I live on Rumberg, bro. I know where this is at.
Yeah.
Well, another episode in the books. Haley, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Haley.
And for dealing with us and our silliness too. Two addicts and a moron. We're out of here.